Shabbat Shalom. And Mazal Tov to Danielle and Max on your upcoming wedding. Beautiful. Let me share with you a story that happened to me in Israel. One with a little girl, Coral, that changed me forever. But first, I'll also share that in my 3 months volunteering in Israel, the most fulfilling and telling experience was when I taught evacuated children 2-3 times a week in a school that was set up by the Israeli government for evacuated families, mefunim, evacuees. In this particular case, families from the south, by Gaza, and the north, by Lebanon, were placed in hotels in Netanya as a safer location. My base was also in Netanya, where my Ima lives, my mother. Every morning at 8 a.m., I would walk to one of the hotels there and hop on the school bus with the children and earplugs. I did that for just about 3 months. By the way, when Perry arrived to also volunteer in Israel in my last 2 weeks there, he also came on this school bus for the evacuees, on the school bus and all. Back to our little girl, Coral. One day, riding the bus to school, Coral, 6 years old, sat next to me. It was perhaps a couple of months post the traumatic October 7. Coral was not one of my students, but she saw me daily on that school bus talking to a lot of children. Coral was a tiny, beautiful child. Her hair was pulled back in a high ponytail, and she has the most beautiful, big brown eyes. Here is a conversation between Coral and myself on that bus ride. Coral. Morale Anglit, do you live in America? They called me Morale Anglit, English teacher. Myself. Yes, Coral. And where are you from? Coral. I am from Kibbutz Erez. By the way, Kibbutz Erez is one of the kibbutzim in the northern part of the Gaza Strip, where the attack took place. And then Coral began volunteering information almost nonstop. Coral continued. See, when the terrorists arrived, we were home and we heard lots of booms and screaming. My parents put me and my little brother in the mamad, in the shelter room, and told me to be quiet and to hold my brother and not to leave the room. And I did it. And even when I heard more screaming and booms, I'm not afraid. אני לא מפחדת. I'm not afraid. She kept looking up at me with her big brown eyes every time she stressed that she was not afraid. And throughout it all, she was hugging her backpack. I continued, how old is your brother? Coral. He's 2 years old, but I was able to hold him and protect him the whole time. I'm the big sister. אני לא מפחדת. I'm not afraid. And I stayed in the mamad, the shelter room, for a long, long time. אני לא מפחדת. We have toys in the mamad, and I gave him toys and played with him. My Ima said to be quiet there, and I was very, very quiet. I didn't want my brother to cry or make any noise, so I kept him busy the whole time. אני לא מפחדת. I am not afraid. Even if I see a terrorist, I'm not afraid. And then Coral continued. I told my Ima that we can always stay at this hotel here in Netanya because it's fun and we can wait here for Abba to come back. I'm not afraid. I just don't want to go back there because of the noise, and maybe they are still hiding there, and maybe they will come back. So it's better in the hotel. But I'm not afraid. אני לא מפחדת. What do you do with that? What do you do with that? And this is one example of many. Many students had their emotional breakdowns. I was there. Coral is one example of one that made it, quote unquote, alive. Friends, where is the uproar of the world facing these rapes and slaughter and inhumane acts of barbarism towards innocent people? You ask me what I witnessed in Israel? This is what the people in Israel talk about. Why aren't the hostages released the very next day on October 8th? This is not an army against army here. Why the silence? What do we make out of the horrifying silence of the world, raping us, the victims, a second time? Why is Israel forced to negotiate with terrorists to release their babies? And what precedents are we creating here by leaving Israel on its own struggle only to criticize it once it fights back? Friends, this is not about politics. This is about basic human conduct and about doing the right thing. Except doing the right thing for Israel, fighting for Israel, demanding the release of hostages for Israel isn't part of the formula of the world. It is not fashionable to be on the side of Israel, and worse, these are deliberate acts of anti-Semitism. We Jews know that. We Jews must know that. We must know that with every step we take and every choice we make. So I volunteered in Israel. I'm happy to share that there were many volunteers, mostly Israelis. For every need that came up, there was a group that provided help. You name it. The camaraderie and solidarity and unity in Israel to be there for each other in crucial times is exceptional. I also witnessed lots of volunteer help coming from all over the world, from here as well, as you know. So I taught evacuees, I worked on farms, I helped feed soldiers, I spoke and interviewed lots of people and shared it in as many places as I could to publicize events and bear witness. Perry eventually joined me and did the same. I laughed with the people, cried with them, loved them, and gave it my best. And it was hard to leave Israel. Friends, October 7, 2023 redefined history, redefined Israel, redefined our view and feelings towards Israel, redefined us as Jews in Israel and out of Israel, redefined me as a Jewish Israeli American. Jewish Israeli American. Cards are reshuffled, and what seemed to be one promising path towards peace became a slap on the face reality to many. And when you have a good chunk of time to immerse yourself in a culture, you learn more, you feel more, and you know more. And I had that time, and I am your witness, sharing it with you on this Shabbat. Allow me to divert for a minute and thank you all for your ongoing support you had shown me throughout my stay in Israel. 3 months is a long time spent in a hard reality, but you are there with me. All my adult students support before and after, many of you here, good words, emails, text, love notes, Facebook thumbs up and comments and more. All that strengthened me. Please know that. My dear husband, Perry, who did not miss a day or night to call me, to check up on me and support me. Yes, I know it was a little bit checkered without me, a little quiet without me in those 3 months, but still, thank you, my love. Thank you. And when Perry arrived in Israel and we continued our joint volunteer work, we always sent a message of love and support from our community, from you, Temple Bet Shalom in Livingston, New Jersey. And everyone in Israel is very, very appreciative for that support. They need us and our embrace just as much as we need to give it. They are always grateful for what we do for them, and they do not take us for granted. So toda rabba to all of you. When I first arrived in Israel, everything was still fresh. I was first hit not only by sirens, but also by fears, terror, and anger from all directions. I talked to many, many people, young and old, from many walks of life. People cope differently with the present reality. One cab driver, for example, told me that for the past month he stopped listening to the news, just music, that's it, per his daughter's instructions. The what if sense of terror all over Israel was prevalent and still is. It was expressed everywhere. What if they attack us again? What if Hezbollah in the north will join Hamas and attack us at the same time? What if the world will turn its back even worse on us and hurt us? Why not finish Iran? What if the United States would betray us? What if my parents were taken away? What if my son or my daughter or my husband or my wife will not return home? What if I will not have a home again? What about my farm? What about my work? And ultimately, what about my existence? Our existence. Lots of what ifs by people in the street, children, cab drivers, army bases, hospitals, farmers, and in the news. That is the Israeli news. Diaspora news are different. One should know. I watched Israeli channels, European channels like CNN Europe, and our CNN in America. What is offered by the media outside of Israel is selective information. Please know that. Well, as time went on, those doubts, fears, and sense of helplessness opened the doors a little to compassion, resilience, and hope. Let me clarify that the horrible emotions were not replaced by compassion and resilience and hope, but opened a tiny window, inviting them in towards healing. Just about every person in Israel, including myself, want the removal of Hamas and Hezbollah from dwelling on their backyard, on my family's backyard, on our people's backyard, and of course, we all want our innocent hostages back home. The struggle is real. How? How is that accomplished? Everyone has his or her opinion and ideas of the best approach. But one thing we can agree on, it is not that simple. Not simple. And as Israelis saw the progress that is made by the army and the steps that are taken to protect the people, hope and resolve became more pronounced. Resolve. Let's talk about it for a minute. Of course, resolve is a good thing. Israelis are known to have resolve. Being attacked and terrorized so many times where your existence is at stake all the time will do it to you. When is the next bullet to my head? How temporary is my life? So resolve, yes, of course. What's the alternative, right? We Jews are experienced with coming out of the ashes and moving on, but really, think about Coral, the little girl, or about the many children or adults who actually experienced the horrors that we hear about. Think about them. Is their life going back to normal eventually? Ever? See, Israel is engaged right now in Milchemet Mitzvah, a commanded war, a self-defense war. In Parashat Ki Teitzeh, not this parasha, it's sometime in September, in Parashat Ki Teitzeh we learn about two types of war, Milchemet Mitzvah and Milchemet Reshut. One is the war of choice, offensive war, Milchemet Reshut, and the other, the one that Israel is engaged in, is a commanded war, war for its existence, a self-defense war. So yes, a good chunk of my time was spent on teaching evacuated children from 9 in the morning till 1. I would teach 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th graders English. Boobalez, loved it. As I worked tirelessly to support evacuated children carrying the weight of emotional baggage, at times their laughter became a beacon of light in the darkness. I met with many of their parents, heard many of their stories, pain, fears, and hopes. Some are more resilient than others. Friends, when I left the school, I was awarded a certificate of recognition from the school, and I'm proud of it. I visited army bases in the south by Gaza. My brother, Yoram, was able to connect me in. About a month post-October 7, it was still a scary time there. The ride to the south, the visit to the Nova Festival site in Re'im, seeing the trees and bushes around the site. Yes, that is where some ran towards, trying to escape the massacre, trying to hide out, but ultimately were murdered. It was chilling and very uncomfortable. I heard bombs while there, but was assured that it was Mishelanu, friendly fire. Still startling. At the army base, I was offered a bulletproof vest. I helped feed the soldiers and interviewed many. I shared what was allowed from security perspective on Facebook and on other media. I joined the Hasbara team, the explanation team of the Jewish world, those who drafted themselves to explaining and speaking out on behalf of Israel. It's called Hasbara in Hebrew. Perry eventually joined me and gave blessing to the IDF soldiers, like the one he just did, Mishebera. And you should have been there one time when he finished the blessing for the IDF and that army base with his beautiful baritone voice, outdoors, over 100 soldiers, young men and women with guns bigger than half their body, all ran towards Perry in dance and song, Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael Chai. It was so beautiful and emotional. Or at another time, also with Perry, we went to Ichilov Hospital in Tel Aviv. Ichilov Hospital in Tel Aviv to visit wounded soldiers. Perry gave me shaberach and chizuk to many wounded soldiers. And also there, we experienced something you can only see in Israel. Outside the hospital, a bunch of soldiers who came to visit their wounded friends waited for Perry, and as soon as we got outside the door, they all burst into song, Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael Chai. It was an amazing experience. We have all these wonderful events recorded and documented. We want these memories. Along soldiers, we stood in solidarity, offering not just words, but tangible assistance and unwavering support. From the fields where I picked strawberries and citrus fruit, pomelos as big as watermelon, to the streets where I spoke with everyday people, I witnessed a nation wounded and afraid, yet determined to rise above the threat of terrorism. In reflecting on my experiences, I'm reminded of the portion of this week, Teruma, which means in Hebrew, donation, and emphasizes the importance of individual, community, and collective action. Just as the Israelites came together to build a tabernacle, so too must we unite in our efforts to rebuild and heal in the aftermath of tragedy. Just as the Israelites contributed their resources and skills, so too must we offer our time, our compassion, and our commitment to creating a safer Israel. Safer Israel is safer for Jews all over the world. We all know this. This is not the time to point fingers and play the blaming game. There will be and should be investigation, and there will be and should be consequences for what and why October 7 happened the way it did. We all want answers. But now, as we are amid serious struggle, let us unite against a common enemy, one that threatens to destroy us all, Israelis and Jews all over us, the everlasting scapegoats. And this time, it is in the year 2024. What I wanted to take from this talk, besides how meaningful the 3 months of volunteering work were, and how grateful Israelis are for our support, is this. This tragedy did not happen to them. It happened to us. We were all raped and massacred and slaughtered and terrorized. One nation, one people, one heart. We are Israel. As we confront the looming threat of Hamas, Iran, Hezbollah, and from the river to the sea threats, let us unite and stand firm against those who seek to sow division and destruction. Let us speak up as the world remains silent. Let us remain strong and united. Let us be the fighters in our backyard, lest it may reach our front yard. Together, let us work towards a future where the laughter of children is not overshadowed by fear, and where the promise of peace shines brightly for Jews all over the world. Thank you. Shabbat Shalom, and Am Israel Chai indeed.